made by Marner! Holy mackerel!
It is Gilmore waiting around the net, he's open!
Gilmore! Johnny Toronto! I wonder if they can hear it on Long Island.
Great move! What a goal! Beauty! Austin Matthews!
Bless you, boys! What a game!
Welcome to episode 90 of the Maple Leafs Hot Stove Podcast. I'm Nick Ashbourne, joined as always by Anthony Petrielli. Anthony, it's always been hard to be confident about the Toronto Maple Leafs in the playoffs in recent history, but we are recording today at a moment where they are 2-0 up in a series that they entered as the prohibitive favorite. So I'll kind of just throw it to you off the top, and we'll dive into it as we go. But how do you feel about what you've seen so far and the position the Leafs find themselves in?
I mean, I think it would be hard to not feel good about it. It would be disingenuous and strange and looking for reasons to be negative if you're really looking at the series so far and saying, oh, there's problems here bubbling. I think there's been so much discussion about the 5-on-5 play and shots on net and zone time. And I think a large part of that has been driven by the broadcast itself. Like directly, the broadcast is noting it at seemingly every intermission panel, like almost to a degree where I'm sure this is actually the case, where they're like tapping guys on the shoulder as part of that panel saying like, you need to say something positive about the Ottawa Senators, much like any, sport program for the past 30 years. Like they say like someone's got to say something here about this team that's positive, even though that team is seemingly never the Leafs. I think a large part of that is the Leafs have never been chasing the game against the Senators. In game one, they were up 2-0, or they were up 2 goals for at least 2 goals for the first the 30 plus minutes of that game. Like half that game, they were up at least multiple goals. Of course, they're going to get territorially outplayed in that situation. They're protecting a lead. They didn't really do much in terms of giving Ottawa breaks. And then, you kind of look at game 2, and I thought they thoroughly outclassed them in the first period. I thought they were significantly better than the Senators in the first, which, I mean, when you think about it, how many times have we been on the other side? The Leafs crushed them in game 1, 6-2. And you're expecting Ottawa to respond. And the Leafs come out in the first and they just thoroughly outplay them. I didn't think that period was particularly close. And then you get into the second period and the Leafs get dominated, which was unacceptable to the level of which they did get dominated.
Yeah, I mean, it was a tough go.
But they went into it up 2-0, coming off a game where they beat them 6-2. And you could tell they kind of took their foot off the pedal. And when Ottawa did tie it, I mean, even honestly, that entire period, I thought the third period was good. Ottawa scored on their first shot on net. The Leafs had multiple chances to extend the lead. They just, they couldn't bury. John Tavares is usually money on a breakaway. They had some, good chances. In the third period, 2-1, they had the best chances to score through and through. The Ottawa goal was not, it was a nice tip, and everything that went into it, but it wasn't a dangerous, situation or a dangerous lead up. Gaudette just made a good play. Kudos to him. And when the game did get tied, the Leafs had a number of chances to win it in regulation as well. I would have liked to see Calle Jarnkrok get a puck on net on that. I know it got blocked and Zoo made a good block, but pick a better spot and make Ullmark make a save. So yeah, I mean, ultimately I just look at it kind of the way I went into the series. I think the Leafs are the better hockey team. I think they know that. I think they're playing like that for once, which is nice. I mean, I ultimately picked the Leafs in 6 because I've just seen too much nonsense from them over the years to fully trust that, they could do it in the 4 or 5 that honestly on paper, I think they should. I'm definitely not ready to say the series is over or anything to that degree, given their past history, but I like their approach so far. Like I think they're the better hockey team. I think that's clear if you're like really paying attention to what's happening. And it's nice to see.
Yeah, I mean, when we talked about it in the preview, I kind of felt like that this was a series where the Leafs were just going to take care of business. As much as that sounded crazy in the context of what we've seen from this group. But that's what it's looked like so far, right? Like in the first game, like I know Brady Tkachuk made some comments about like the Sens at 5-on-5 and like how that was something to build on. So like they lost that game badly, and they also like they showed themselves to lack composure. Like, even he in his little scrum or whatever talked about sort of first game jitters, which you probably shouldn't be kind of throwing out there, even if it's true. But like Ottawa was trying so hard to show that they were physical because it's the playoffs. They're like, oh, it's the playoffs. So we have to show that we're physical in a way that was nonsensical. And like, it wasn't necessarily that it was a bunch of crazy, dangerous plays or whatever, but it was just like a bunch of stupid extracurricular nonsense that ultimately played a role in them losing the game. And before the series, and even when the Leafs are playing a better opponent, and like you said, the series is not over. I'm not trying to shove Ottawa to the side. But in a hypothetical world where the Leafs are,
I'm not saying they're winning the series, but like in the event they win the series,
in the event that they win the series, the broad sort of formula for this Leafs team is use the power play as a weapon. Like, even though that hasn't been the case in the playoffs, different looking power play right now, 5 forwards, yada, yada, yada. Obvious early success in this Ottawa series. Count on your goaltending being really good, because as much as Stolarz is unproven in the playoffs, he's now shown for kind of 2 years that he can be a really, really strong goaltender, and he's looked every bit that in the first couple of games. And so it's like, it's about the power play, it's about the goaltending, and then you think of like that Mitch Marner breakaway, like those kind of moments of brilliance from the best players on the Toronto Maple Leafs, and how other teams just in theory are not going to have as much as of that. And again, you keep adding this caveat of like in the playoffs that hasn't necessarily shown up, but it is a formula that is logical based on what we know about the skill level of these players and the strength of this team. And to me, that's just what we've seen so far. Like, was the second period of game 2 brutal? Absolutely. Like, it looked like a bad version of a third period in that context, where it's just like no imagination whatsoever, no offensive pressure, just kind of turtling in. They got caved in for a period. You can get caved in for a period out of 6, and like it's not the end of the world. And what you said about the broadcast, I think that there is truth to that, right? And it's not necessarily some nefarious thing, but like, let me pitch you the alternate broadcast where 3 guys are sitting at a desk and they're like, the Leafs are the better team and they're in the lead, and they're going to win this game, and they're probably going to win the series. Like, it's not much of a show.
No,
Like
Nick, let me pitch you the alternative broadcast. Let's just be honest about what's happening on the ice, and people can like it or dislike it. We've kind of talked about that throughout the season when we flag certain things, right? Like at times Morgan Rielly hasn't been good. Like for long stretches, in fact, he hasn't been good. So
more often
far,
than not, I would say.
yeah, so far, great start to the playoffs. He's doing all the things that we said that he needed to do. He needed to get active in the play. He needed to move his feet. Like when Rielly gets the puck on the blue line and he stands there and looks to like pick out passes or, make a stagnant play, he's not good. In the first game, he gets the puck on the blue line, and what does he do? He walks the blue line. It's a lucky bounce off Highmore's glove, but the process is there. He walked the line, he takes a shot through traffic. Good things are going to happen. Like it's not,
The
again, like
second
it's,
goal, the process is there too, right? Like, it's
yeah,
him seeing a lane and going to the net. Like, even if it goes off his skate, like neither of those are the most beautiful goals Rielly's ever going to score, but they both come from him doing the right thing.
yeah. I mean, it's about just being honest about what's happening on the ice. And it's like, funny enough, like, oh, game 2, Domi was really poor. Like he had a poor 60. There's no, that is a black and white thing. Like he started the series on line 2. He got demoted halfway through the game because it was unplayable. That line was bad against the Sens in regulation. Domi misread a reverse. That was, to me, that was clear as day that a reverse was taking place there. And I do think Ekman Larson has to own some of that, because the far side rim was there for Nick Robertson, so I'm not solely blaming Domi, but he definitely played a role in it. It was poor. And then they put him back out there for an offensive zone faceoff with a couple minutes left. The puck goes into the Leafs zone. He throws a weak backhander up the boards, turnover. Nick Jensen, good shot on net through traffic, and the puck bounced backdoor to Stützle. Like he had an empty net. Like he couldn't handle the puck. Domi dove out of desperation, but all that to say is he was bad. And I tweeted it because, like, at what point are we benching this guy? Like, not only are you not benching him, but you're playing him in critical moments. 2-1 game, 5 minutes left. 2-2 game, couple minutes left with two of your best forwards. Like, you're actively moving him up the lineup and problematic. And then he scores. But that doesn't, like, good for him for scoring. And it's a nice redemption. But that doesn't undo the 60 minutes or even honestly the 120 minutes, I would call it, to that point. But, to the bigger point of the broadcast is like, just be honest about what's happening. I don't think what's happening right now is being honest about, like, if an NHL coach is sitting there after game one going, the zone time was 2 minutes more for Ottawa in a game that the Leafs were comfortably leading basically the entire time. You're taking the wrong things out of it. And Ottawa played like that going into game two. And it was Sheldon Keefe flashbacks across the board. And lo and behold, I'm watching the Devils, and first period game one, outshot 17-5. Second period game one, 21-8. That's been the case with this group. So it's been nice to have, and I think this is a good pivot. It's been nice to have a more experienced playoff coach behind the bench so far.
Yeah, there's a level of sort of comfortability with all this. And again, I think quality of competition plays into a little bit. Like when you're holding a 2-goal lead against Ottawa, it's a different proposition than holding a 2-goal lead against Florida or Tampa or something like that. But to the Leafs' credit, like they have defended leads well all season long. Like eventually they had those games. The game against the Sharks, I think, was the first time they had that lead going into the third period. Like it's a wild outcome. But like that is an established strength of this team, is that like you can argue with the philosophy, and I think there's a case, but like you can argue with the philosophy that like they get too defensive and that they could do more to counterattack. They could be more ambitious in those positions where they're holding leads and try harder to expand the lead instead of like doing the most they can to collapse on the net, keeps things to the outside. But like this is the philosophy right now. And you do have to give them credit for the fact that they are good at executing on that. Like when they are in a position where they're leading a game, they generally lock it down and they generally win the game. And that hasn't always been the case with this team. Now I'm interested what's going to happen. At a certain point in the series, they're probably going to have to chase a game at some point. But,
For sure.
But, again, the power play looks dynamite right now. You have these scoring threats. And then on the other side, you have Ullmark, who, again, like I'm not being like throw his Vezina in the trash, he's garbage, but like at the same time, he can't be running on like that full level of confidence when he has these playoff woes and then he comes into playoffs and then immediately gives up a bunch of goals. And it's not necessarily like all these goals are his fault, but like it sucks to fish the puck out of your net that much. Like that's part, and he's been beaten by mid-range shots. Like as much as that Nylander power play goal, like we've seen him score that before. He's a great shooter. It's a shot. Like it's a shot from some distance. Like Domi's goal in overtime. Like these are stoppable shots.
Look, none of the goals have been like Lalime level bad, but you've got to make a save. And I love that you mentioned the Vezina. I love that Travis Green mentioned the Vezina. I love everybody mentioning the Vezina. It is the most irrelevant thing I could think of. Like it means nothing. Like, is he still playing on the Boston Bruins? Like, does he have Charlie McAvoy in front of him? Does he have all of these guys that are absolute studs defensively up front in front of him? Like the second Travis Green mentioned the Vezina, I was like, perfect. I like honestly, and like listening to them like wax on about 5-on-5 after game one and all of that conversation, I was like, I really hope that they believe what they're saying. And they came out in game two and very much looked to me like they believed what they were saying. Like Again, like we used to have these conversations about Sheldon all the time. We'd be sitting there going like, he is absolutely kidding himself with some of this discussion. And to the point about the way the Leafs are playing and Craig Berube. So there's a few things Berube's done so far that I really like. Going into the series, he was asked about preparing for Ottawa. And, he mentioned like, well, like this is our schedule. Like I'm paraphrasing, obviously, but it was like, this is like our schedule of events, meaning like when we'll be on the ice and like when we'll review things and like we'll look at these things what the Senators do. And then he was like, but really, it is about us. And he's right. Like it is about the Leafs. Often it is the Leafs beating the Leafs. Like said this a million years. Like who's the Leafs' toughest playoff opponent? Themselves and the way that they play or don't play. And I think he's done a really good job of kind of empowering the group. I think there's a bit of a confidence to him and a bit of a bigger picture thinking. It's like they won game one, and a lot of the conversation from the team was like, it means absolutely nothing if you follow it up with a poor game two. And, like Domi scores the overtime winner and he's just like, on to the next one. Like we're trying to do bigger things here. And you have people wrapped up in things already. And it's like, oh, what's the crowd like? And like, are the vibes amazing? And the guys are just like, we have way bigger goals in mind. And then maybe my favorite thing that happened in the entire 2-game series so far is their first goal against the Sens, and they show the bench and Mark Savard is like fired up. He loves it.
I remember this. This is funny.
And Craig Berube looks at him and is like, what the F are you doing? Like, that is an actual like Stanley Cup winner. Like that is a champion. Like he's looking going like it is game one, period one. Like relax, like be a professional. Like we're here. Like we have much bigger goals in mind than winning game one against the Senators at home. Like it's part of the process. Like we need to do this and accomplish it, but this is not what we're here for. Like we're here to win. And like I look at the way that they're playing and I'm saying to myself, like they're preparing to play a better team this way because, there's large stretches where like they'll send one guy in deep. And if Ottawa makes one good pass, they're out of the zone. And the Leafs could pressure them more. Like there's times where their defense could pinch up the wall and keep pucks in, or their forwards could be more aggressive. And I honestly think that they're sitting there and they're in part going like, we need to prepare to play these other teams. And we need to have this formula because I think the reality is if you're playing like a Florida, you're not going to go head to head against them 5-on-5. Like it's maybe the best 5-on-5 team in the league. Like you can't sit there and say like we're going to outpossess them. Like we're going to actually like control possession here and like we're going to take their formula and shove it down their throat. I think there's a little bit to it in terms of like, well, we're going to defend really good and we're going to counter and like we're going to control the house on both sides. We're going to box out like crazy. And when we do get our chances, like we're going to get inside and we're going to get them and our power play is going to be good. And I'm watching Berube manage it so far. And again, like we're recording after game two. They've had no real hiccups to this point. Like they've never been losing at any point so far. So things can change, but I like the way that he's managing it. Like it's about us. It's about doing what we need to do. Like we're here for a bigger goal in mind. This is just a step one in that process. Greg with the nonsense and he doesn't get too caught up in it, right? It's like, oh, like, are you mad? Like blah, blah, blah. And it's just like, not my call. Like, what do you want me to say? Like, not my call. And then the next day they're like, oh, how are you going to control guys? Like, like guys are going to want to go after Greg because of like the cross check and stuff. And he was like, are they? Like, why? Right. And he knows, but like, he's sitting there going like, we're not getting wrapped up in this nonsense. Like we're not doing any of this. So I think he's done a really good job just of like toning, like keeping the goals in mind, and they're much bigger goals, and keeping perspective on things. And we talked about it like a month ago. It's like, I've been waiting for him to lose his mind on one of these players, like all season, like in a presser to just come out, like one of the players or like the entire team and just be like, that was pathetic. And he hasn't done it. Like he's done the exact opposite. It's like everything is super positive. everything is about protecting his guys. Everything is about empowering his guys. Like, he hasn't said like a bad word about anybody basically to this point. I just think he's doing a really good job of kind of managing the group so far.
It's always difficult to measure the value of kind of a good energy, for lack of a better term. But when you think about, yeah, like the message and the energy coming off of these two teams, like I mentioned before, like the first game from Ottawa was just sort of a train wreck from that perspective. And I think that it was very clear, probably to Berube, probably to the Maple Leafs in general, that the more they got mixed up with Ottawa in dumb bullshit, the worse it was for them. Because like the cleaner and easier and more normal this hockey is, the more likely the better team wins. And the Leafs are the
Yeah.
better team. So like the more they get wrapped up in dumb, now like Stolarz having some fun over there and drawing his penalty, and like sure, he had his moment, and like it's not like they're not throwing any hits. It's not like they're playing quote unquote soft, but they are not getting pulled down into any theatrics, any extracurriculars. And maybe Ottawa is gonna come to like get even more desperate and push a little further in that direction. We'll see. I was interested in their game two, where they really seem to pull back from a lot of that stuff. I guess it didn't
The Leafs
work for
power
them.
play is torching them.
Yeah, I mean that's a
That's the
factor.
benefit of the power play, right? It's like you can't do that crap if the Leafs are just going to cook you every time you get one.
I thought it was funny, that quote from Travis Green, which was relayed from the broadcast. I don't know if it's precise, but about that he felt like he couldn't even like get a read on what was going wrong because the goals were so fast. He was like there's only actually spent like a minute on the penalty kill and given up like 3 goals. It's like, dude, I don't know why you would put that out there in that type of way.
On the flip side, we look great at 5-on-5 and have a ton to build off of. So yeah, I mean, like the so far, I think Berube's had the upper hand. Like he looks like an experienced coach in the playoffs who is just a little bit bigger picture thinking, is not particularly wrapped up in anything of that's happening. Like I'm glad you mentioned the extracurriculars because you can tell that the Leafs are under clear instruction to not get involved. Like there's a fine line between like not taking like nonsense and like not accepting cheap shots or things of that nature, and then that crossing over into everything's a story, everybody's a tough guy, every whistle's like a joke show. And honestly, like again, like I think a large part of that is probably coming from the coaching staff in the sense where it's like, guys, like we're better than these guys. Like we don't need to do any of this. Like just
There's
ignore them.
nothing to gain. Like there's
Yeah.
nothing for them to gain by getting involved in
Yeah.
that kind of stuff.
It,
Like the end of game one too. Like there's sort of all this kind of pushing and shoving
and
and stuff, and like Tanev is vaguely involved, and other people just
yeah.
kind of aren't, and it's like,
Yeah,
let
like
it go.
Lorentz is like somewhat waiting in there, but like you could tell like not coming in guns a blazing. Even originally, Max Domi on the McMahon hit after the whistle, like he doesn't come in like ready to go. Like he gets hit by Clevin, and then things kind of escalate from there. And then at some point, he feeds Gaudette a knuckle sandwich, but like leading into that, like he didn't come in like a gangbuster on it. And again, like I think it's a large part of it's just like, guys, like we do not need to do this. Like there's no reason to overly engage. Like, you know, the Sens are down 2-0 in game two. And what's Brady Tkachuk doing? Just nonsense after the whistle.
I,
Matthews,
I want to
Tavares.
do my complaint about the broadcast now, actually, and sort of like the coverage of the series. I'm really, and I was watching game one with a friend, and this ended up becoming sort of like a running joke.
Is he
Like
a
it just
Sens fan?
No, he's not. So like he's a Leafs
Okay.
fan.
It's
But
important
about just
context.
about like about how people just keep describing Brady Tkachuk about how he's like born for this and like this type of hockey. It's like he's never done it before. Like, what are you talking about?
Only Brady Tkachuk is excited for the playoffs. Like not a single other player in the series, maybe even the league. Only Brady Tkachuk is excited about the playoffs.
The way he's being treated as this sort of like unique, and I get it. Okay, he had a good Four Nations, legitimately, but like he's never been in the playoffs. He's a really good player. He is a really good player, but he's not one of like the superstars of the league. Like he's not someone who's like truly destined to take over. But like from the commentary you hear about it, you'd be like, this is the toughest man who ever lived, and he's like destined to win the Conn Smythe. And I find it very frustrating.
This is Eric Lindros in his prime. And honestly, I think part of what's happened here with Brady Tkachuk so far, I mean, there's the part about he's returning from injury. And like that is apparent to me, right? And then I think there's a second part where we're looking at Four Nations, and like I'm not gonna downplay his impact in Four Nations. Like he was an impact guy, he made things happen. The thing about his Four Nations play is he wasn't the man on that team, and he wasn't the second man on that team, and he wasn't the third man on that team. So it's a little bit of a different role when you're not counted on to be like the offensive driver, and you can sit there and look at him and just say like, go out and kill guys. Like just go be a menace to society. And then like those other things will just like roll around. And if you chip in a couple of goals, it's gravy and it's awesome. But like just go be an animal. And the reality is this Ottawa team is not built for him to go do that and just run around all game. Like he could do it, and he might do it in game 3 at this point because they're down 2-0 and he's probably frustrated. And honestly, I don't think I could look Drake Batherson in the eye if I was an Ottawa Senator on that, just the entire sequence of overtime, which we'll get to in a second. But he can't play like that because like they actually need him to be like an offensive star in the series. And so he needs to focus on like actually producing. And so it's a completely different role. Like he's got to be like a line one guy that is like driving the bus offensively for this team, not a guy that's just running around killing guys. And yes, in theory, you could do both, but that is a lot, especially for a guy coming back from injury. So I'm largely just watching him and thinking, like the Four Nations is getting referenced and like the physical package, but
he's not the first guy who's ever been like fairly physical and able to score a goal. Like it just, I don't know.
And I think on that note too, one of the things we talked about in the preview of the series is, okay, like Tkachuk is physical, like he's a truck. Like I'm not going to take that away from him. But the Leafs are equipped on defense to manage that. Like McCabe's not soft. Tanev isn't soft. Carlo is massive. Benoit is not soft. Like the Leafs have size. Like they've got some size and jam. But on the flip side, one of the things we talked about is the Sens don't. Like they have a mobile and a skilled top 4. And I would take any 4 of those defensemen on my team, no question. And I actually really like Jake Sanderson. I think he's great. I think he's fantastic. But they're all like not like I don't want to say soft, but none of them are tough. And none of them are overly physical. And they're having on their side, they're having a hard time with Matthew Knies. Knies is just going wherever he wants in front of the net. No one's doing a thing about it. Like Nick Jensen was not moving Matthew Knies like that. So, like a lot of attention on Brady. He's a good player. He's a physical player and he's a lot to handle in front of the net, but the Leafs are better equipped for that than anything that the Sens have. And the Sens are having an issue with it. Like on the power play, like it's noticeable. Like Knies is dictating a lot of their defensive movements in general, with his ability to kind of get his spots and whatever he wants. It's like you look at the Tavares goal that bounces off Ullmark and Jensen and in game 2, but then you look at the Tavares goal off the high tip and the rebound. And Knies kind of clears, like it was like parting of the Red Sea because Knies moves to the far side post and just like boxes out the Sens D-man. And Tavares is just like right there by himself to collect his own rebound and score. Like probably not enough attention on that side of things.
Yeah, I mean, Knies, it's interesting because, he's part of this huge number one line. And so the expectations are higher. And, he went a bit hot and cold during the year, but you kind of zoom out for a second and I think he's really is sort of the best kind of fifth forward that they've had. Like Zach Hyman, went on to greater things than we've seen from Knies yet. But, he's like you said, he's a force in front of the net on the power play, which is arguably the team's best weapon right now. And he is a difficult matchup for this team in general. We know he's a difficult matchup for Tampa Bay if things go that way, because he's just inevitably scores 2 goals every time they play him. And, he is the type of guy that everyone would, kind of like on a much smaller scale, the type of things that people say about Brady Tkachuk, but like he's the sort of guy who you expect to hear from in the playoffs. And, because he hasn't, scored a bunch of goals yet, doesn't mean he's not making an impact. And, I'd be pretty confident that he's going to score a couple goals here before it's all said and done.
Yeah. So as we switch to Ottawa now, and I called it home ice in the post game, and someone was quick in the comments to say like it's not home ice, and that's fair. Like there's a good chance if Senators fans already weren't selling their tickets, there's a good chance they're selling their ticket. Game 2 might have happened, and they might have said I'm out. Like there's no chance I'm gonna go get lit up by Leaf fans and watch this like 0-2 Sens team. Completely fair, and make some money out of it too, probably. But one thing Ottawa will have is last change. And so I'm expecting the matchups to flip here. So far through 2 games, the Leafs have been hammering Matthews against Stützle until the third period, I will say, of game 2. They did start moving off of that. They did start taking Matthews against the Pinto line and against Cousins and whatever. Like the Leafs did make a push to try to lengthen their lead. They just, again, were unsuccessful. But by and large, it's been Matthews against Stützle line. They've been having Tavares against the Pinto, or like generally the Pinto line, but at times the Cousins line. And then conversely, the Laughton line against the Cousins line, which is how puck drop started in game 2, which I really liked for the Leafs because that Laughton line, they just do things properly. They got the puck in deep, they recovered it, they got some ozone time. Like that's how you start a game. I'm expecting the Sens to want some different matchups here now. I would imagine that they really want that Pinto line against the Matthews line. So that's first and foremost. Like if the Matthews line is going to get skunked by the Pinto line, who coming into this series, they were a really effective line for the Senators down the stretch. Like Pinto led their team in goals since Christmas. Like that line was effectively their second borderline first line minutes wise at times. I believe when I looked at it coming into the series, Pinto was like second among their forwards in ice time, and Greg was third for like months heading into the playoffs. So I'm imagining the Sens are going to want to hammer that. So that's a huge swing right there. And then the question is going to be who is going to get the Stützle line in that scenario. Now, if I was the Leafs, I would want that to be the Laughton line. Just a checking line, put McCabe and Tanev out there, call it. I'm curious if the Sens target the Tavares line with the Stützle line, or if we get the Cousins line against the Stützle line, or sorry, the Cousins line against the Tavares line, and that checking matchup situation. So like when we say it's not over, like these matchups flipping and, teams will always say, as they should, series isn't over until you lose a game on home ice. I'm curious to see how that plays out. Like how do you think that's all going to sort out matchup wise?
Yeah, and I think it's pretty clear they want Pinto versus Matthews, and I get that, right? Like if you've got that traditional third line who you feel really good about defensively and you think there's a good chance that they can slow down like an elite line, then the moment that matchup is even sort of feasible, like that's a big win for your team if you're able to do it. And we'll circle back on whether they're going to be able to do it. If I were them, I would probably want Stützle against Tavares just because that line, especially, they had Domi and then they had Holmberg. All the good chances went to Holmberg again in game two. We'll see how that holds up. But like that, like I think, for example, like the Domi line might be hard to hunt. Like they might not be playing enough. So I think that the Tavares Nylander line hasn't been fantastic at 5-on-5 yet. The Senators, they love the 5-on-5 matchup, and that's where they're going to win. So like I think that line, they still probably think that there's a little bit of defensive vulnerability there. That's probably what I would target if I were them. And then, if you're them, you probably feel okay about Cousins against whatever other line it ends up being, whether it's a Laughton line, whether it's a Domi line, and then you mix in the fourth line wherever it makes sense. The thing is that like the whole theory, like that sounds good from an Ottawa perspective. Like it sounds nice. It's like, okay, we kind of erase their top line and then we get our top line against their second line. We feel good about that. And then things sort of work out from there. The whole theory of the case is based on the idea that this Pinto line can really slow down the Matthews, Marner, Knies line. And I'm not saying that it's not possible, but I'm saying that like the whole structure relies on it. And at the end of the day, like, the Matthews, Marner, Knies line should be one of the better lines in the league and should be the type of line that isn't very easy for this, this Pinto third line, which again, quality unit for what they do, to take away. Like, that's the point of having a Matthews Marner line that makes all the money and, and you're centering all your offense there, not spreading those guys out, et cetera, et cetera. Like the idea is that this line should be able to beat these type of matchups. And we don't know yet. We'll see what happens here. But I think that like they've got a great structure, but it's just it's reliant on the idea that this top line of Leafs can be slowed down by a third line, because once that doesn't work and then maybe you start to bring your first line into play and matching them up, then the whole structure comes apart a little bit and things look a lot more grim for the Senators. So that's going to be fascinating to watch. Like how good a job can Pinto and his group do against the Matthews line? Because I have very little doubt that that's what they're going to want.
Yeah, and without making this entire episode like all sunshine and rainbows, I will say I do think there's a collection of Leafs that can play a lot better than what they've played so far, and like Matthews is one of them to me. Look, he made a really good play defensively to cut off the pass and then in game one, and then to spring Marner on a breakaway. Absolute dart of a pass. Great play. He has a power play assist that made it 6-2. And he has a secondary power play assist in game two on a Tavares goal that like double deflected in the net. So, and he hasn't scored yet, obviously. And like the bar for him is like McDavid level. Like that needs to be the bar for him. And look, Edmonton lost game one, but McDavid was absolutely insane in game one. Like that, like what he mounted was like nuts. And it might not be this series, it might not be necessary, but at some point, like we're going to need to see Matthews do that. And like, to me, a great time to do that would be game 3 against Ottawa, because then you've kind of iced the series at that point. Like you just rip their heart out if he comes out and just plays a massive game 3. And so ultimately I'm just kind of watching him going, like, you have a whole other level here. You haven't reached it yet. Fair enough. You probably haven't needed to. I mean, you definitely haven't needed to, because the Leafs are up 2-0. And one of those games was a snooze. And the other game, you were up multiple goals and never actually losing at any point. And I did think he was good after Ottawa tied it. Like, that line had 2 prime chances to win the game. One was off his wraparound, and the other was off his pass to Calle Yarncroc as the trailer. So I'm not saying he's been bad. He's been good. He's been solid. But like, for what we know Matthews could be, like what Matthews is as a 10, he's probably been what, like a 7.5, 8. Like there's a whole other level to this guy. You know, even Matthew Knies, like I'm kind of watching going, like he has a whole other level here. Like we've seen playoff Knies just be an absolute force. Again, he probably hasn't needed to yet. Like, but if they play Florida, even if they play Tampa, without getting too far ahead of ourselves here, like these guys are going to have to elevate to, you know, a whole other level. On the flip side, guys who I think have played, you know, Brandon Carlo is another one I'd put in that category. Like, I don't think he's had a particularly strong two games.
Tough game two in particular.
Yeah, like, and I wrote that, and people were asking about it. It's like they didn't trade for Carlo for him to be their sixth defenseman. And that's what he was in game two. Like he
I think
played
Benoit's played more than him in the series in total so far.
Yeah. And like a large part of that to me is Carlo has struggled to make reads with the puck. You know, I look at the Sens' first goal of the series. Like, I don't like the gap from Rielly that led to the initial entry and shot. But Carlo has the puck on his stick and just Perron just beats him. He just beats him in a battle. Like Carlo has to make a play there. Like it either has to be off the glass and out, or you got to find a teammate. He doesn't do either of those things. He sits on the puck. Perron wins a battle, goal. So like he's another one that has a whole different level. On the flip side, like Scott Laughton's been really good. Like game one, he was awesome. Like over 15 minutes, primary assist on the first goal of the game. I think he was like 56 or 58% in the dot. Had some jam, threw a big hit early in the game. Like anchored that third line that was really effective for the Leafs. Like you kind of go down the board. And I'm saying third line because they're definitely not the fourth line on this team. Like I promise you, like we can stop calling them.
Yeah,
the
I mean,
line.
Nick Robertson played 9 minutes in game two. So
yeah,
that's
like
the fourth line, the one with Nick Robertson.
Like you're starting the game and they're coming out with Dylan Cousins and Batherson. And that's like effectively their second best offensive line and clearly a top 9 line, like one of their top 3 lines on the Senators. And the Leafs are countering with Laughton because they are one of the top 3 lines for the Leafs. Like they're just a checking line. But for all intents and purposes, they are the third line on this team. Like he had an excellent game. Like I'm not going to say like Lorentz and Yarncroc have been like amazing, but they've been good. Like that entire line has been good. I think Laughton is driving that third line so far. Awesome. I think Ekman-Larsson has been unreal through 2 games. Like kicked it off with the scoring against in the second period last night. There was a play where Ottawa broke in on a 3-on-2, like one of the few odd man rushes the Leafs gave up. And Ekman-Larsson just snuffed it right out before they could make a play. Like he's defending well. Scores the big goal. He's been dangerous offensively. Like he's making good decisions with the puck. Like he looks really, really good. Like the McCabe Tanev pairing, we know what they are. They're awesome. And then honestly, like the stars don't always get like the love. And I know I said Matthews needs to be better. And I think Marner also has another level, but I also think Marner's been really good so far through 2 games. Like I would say he's been their best forward.
Yeah, I think that's valid. Like you said, you're kind of going down the line, and most of the players, to be honest, are something that you have something positive to say about. Like I'm going to circle back on my hobby horse of Pontus Holmberg. Like I hate the fact that Pontus Holmberg has all these quality chances come to his stick, but like there's also a reason that that's been happening. Like he's been putting in good work with that second line. I still don't know if that's the ideal iteration. I'd like to find a way to get McMahon back up there. But like he's done really good, legitimate work, and like he deserves credit for that too. Like there's a reason why his spot in the lineup feels more safe than Nick Robertson when Nick Robertson's a threat to score a goal and he isn't. And I mean, we'll see what happens with Robertson going forward, like how much that holds up, whether the faith remains there. Like, you know, Ekman-Larsson and Rielly, like those guys rank second and third on the Leafs in shot attempts at 5-on-5. Now that's not necessarily what you want, bigger picture. It means some other guys could get more involved and attack the net more. But all season long, we said the Leafs are not getting enough offense from their blue line. And not only that, but they have, at least in these 2 guys, guys capable of making a difference in that way. Like, it's not like they're rolling out 6 Neanderthals who are 6'4", 230 pounds and can't skate. Like, there's some ability there to make a difference from the blue line. These two guys are doing it in the early going. Like we said before, like Rielly's goals may not be beautiful, but they come from the right process. Simon Benoit playing a huge role in that overtime goal. Like, we've joked on the show about how he's been a little bit more active and ambitious in the last little bit of the season here. Well, you know what? Like, that ends up paying off in a big way that helps the Maple Leafs win game 2. Like, I don't have, Carlo's a good guy to kind of circle a little bit because I do think he's scuffled. But, the thing that they did with this team, again, just kind of zooming out the most, like, what's the difference with the Maple Leafs? What makes this group different than previous groups? Why might we expect a different result? The biggest thing that's happened in the last couple of years is remaking this defense core. Like, there's only so much you can do remaking the forwards because you've locked up all the money and the term in these guys, and we'll see what happens in the future with Marner, Tavares, yada, yada, yada. But, like, you're still playing with complementary pieces, hoping for development wins, which is what you got with Knies. But, like, they had this idea, like, we want this bigger, tougher defense that is just, like, we talk so much about, like on the broadcast in general, about the possession game, and like the best defense is not being in your zone. At a certain point, you're going to be in your zone. Like, it's inevitable. Like, you're not going to win the possession battle 80-20. Like, you're going to have to defend in your own zone. And again, like, they deserve credit for that because they are much better at that than they've been other times. Goaltending, obviously a factor. But like, this remade defense core, again, early returns, 2 games, not the scariest opponent. All of that is fair. But this defense core, like, it looks like a quality group. And it's like, not the most star power. There are certainly ones in the league that maybe you trade it for, but like, that has always been kind of like a scary aspect of the Leafs. Like, can you, like, maybe it'll be enough to get by? And right now it feels like at least not a weak link. And that's just a big difference.
Yeah, I mean, their defense is tough. They're just tough to score on. Again, like, they're big. Like, it's hard to get inside on them. They're doing a good job boxing out in front of the net. Like, all these various things. Like, they have a really good goalie. We haven't really talked about Anthony Stolarz. I always find goalies tough to talk about because, as I always say, like, I'm not a goalie guy. Like, goalie is like its own different planet. But obviously it was hilarious to watch him give Ridley Gregg the business. I like the personality on the team. Like, they're just seem because one, they actually have one for once. There were just so many years or so many iterations of the team in past years where it was just like things would happen and like would just have like no idea how to respond or would like embarrass themselves. And by extension, the fan base and everybody watching. And like, it's just like, I have like confidence in them now to not do like the absolute stupidest thing when challenged. And it's nice to see. And again, like, I think a large part of it is the coaching staff and how they're telling them how to approach things. It's like Tkachuk gives Tavares the little stick work at the end of the period. And like, sure, would I have liked to have seen someone on the Leafs just absolutely hammer him after he did that? 100%. But the coaching staff's sitting there going, again, like, there's no need to do that. Like, why would you even bother? Like, you're better than them. Like, just beat them and like hit them where it hurts. And then at the same time, like, protect yourself, look for opportunities within the confines of the game. Don't do it after the whistle. And like, to me, they're like, by and large, like, they're right there. Like, they're on it. So, like, there's that whole level. And then you have like Stolarz, who like, he gets run into game 1 and he just kind of, the second Griggs in front of him, he's like, I'm absolutely going to abuse this guy. And, you just like, you love to see it in the sense that like, there's like some soul to the group now that, there's a little bit more of like, take a number and like get a guy. And that was one of the things I liked about Scott Laughton on the acquisitions. Like, were there better centers available? Yes. Like, there's no question that Brock Nelson is better than Scott Laughton. But, one of the things we talked about towards the end of the season, it's like, I don't think they win the division if they don't acquire Brandon Carlo. Like, he played important minutes for them down the stretch. Jake McCabe missed time. Oliver Ekman-Larsson missed time. Like, if you added like Braden Shen or Brock Nelson, like, much better players than Scott Laughton, but you're running out Connor Timmins, Philip Myers, and Simon Benoit down the stretch, just given the injury situation. You're not winning the division. I'm telling you, like the Leafs aren't ending the season like 13-2-1 with that being half their defense. Like it's just not happening. And those guys make significantly more money. Like they're getting Laughton at $1.5 million. Like that's part of what they paid up for, is that retention, not just this year, but next year. So, you know, it can't just be, well, they could have got this center, like he's better, adds more offensively. Like part of it needs to be, well, they got this guy, but they paid for a discount and they also added a quality right-handed defenseman. And now Morgan Rielly's starting to get comfortable with them and activating offensively. Like you're adding two pieces there under like the cost of like the Laughton retention price of 1.5 and Brandon Carlo with retention. Yanni Gourde was making that much money on his own. And I love Gourde. I think he's been really good on Tampa since they acquired him. I would have loved to have had him. But now you're like paying for retention on Gourde as a rental. You still need a D-man. Like the domino effect is significant here. And you kind of, I'm not saying it was a perfect deadline. I'm not saying like there weren't any other plausible scenarios that you could have worked out. I'm just saying like they had two needs, like they addressed them reasonably well. And we're starting to see it kind of like settle in. And I mean, it's making a big difference. Like Laughton is anchoring like a pretty significant line for them now. And I think even though I do think Carlo can play better, I think having that like stay-at-home righty is having a positive impact on Rielly. And then I think when we look to it for game 3, like we talked about matchups, where do you stand on potentially changing the lineup?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, at this point, the first line and the Laughton line feel fairly locked in, although you can make an argument to shift some pieces around to borrow from the Laughton line, kind of because maybe you have to. I think I would like, ultimately I would like to get McMahon back on that second line. I just think that's the best version. I think that right now they're just not playing particularly well. It is like, this is the difficulty of the whole thing, is like, how can you make sort of this functional Domi line? It's been all season long, it's been a problem, but I don't know exactly what you're going to do with that. Like, I guess like one idea, and I don't think they're going to do this because things are, I think Berube, we've mentioned before, is a results driven guy. And so if things are going well, I think broadly he wants to do the same thing. But I wouldn't mind trying Pacioretty in the lineup, getting him to do Holmberg's thing, getting Holmberg maybe to do Robertson's thing. Like I don't really see. Robertson makes sense when he's hot, and if he's not hot, then right now scoring isn't a huge problem, especially the power play going. That line isn't really working. If you had, I don't know, Domi McMahon and Yarncroke maybe, and then you put Holmberg on the fourth line in Yarncroke's spot to just do kind of responsible stuff and see if Pacioretty has anything. I mean, at this point in the series, you can maybe try something like that. I would be very surprised if they do that because, again, things are working, and trying to bring someone into the lineup at this point when you're up 2-0 doesn't feel likely to me. But this third line Domi, or fourth line, whatever you want to call it, like the Domi situation and the second line feels unsettled, and I'm not sure I want to just keep rolling that out and hoping it gets better, because I'm not convinced that it does.
So I'm kind of torn on it because I do think that there are things that they could potentially improve by making lineup adjustments. At the same time, am I messing with a winning lineup? Probably not. Like honestly, like I'd probably wait for a loss at this point. I understand what Robertson did. I understand that he got benched. I agreed with the benching. I thought it was a terrible penalty. Player in his position. I mean, no player should be taking that penalty in the offensive zone up 2-0. But a fourth liner 100% can't be the one doing that. So all that to say is I get it. I don't think I mess with a winning lineup. I'd probably go back to the same guys and say like I think it can be better and I think we've been better. And I think what if you extend back to the end of the season, like are they on like a 15-2-1 run right now or something outrageous? Like Stolarz is 10-0 in his last 10 games, and it's largely been with this set of 12. And just given that, I'd have a hard time shaking that. And, I think part of what makes it tough is some of the things you would like consider. Like if this was mid-season, I would be saying to shift all sorts of things and try all sorts of kinds of different things. Like, yeah, like I think they could use Camp as like an extra PK body and like a D zone face-off guy. And depending on how the matchups shake out in game 3, I would, and provide if they didn't get the winning result, I'd be looking at Camp and saying like you're coming in for like D zone draws and like PK, and like we're gonna trust you on the road and like in these matchups and like et cetera, et cetera. But I don't think I would shake it right now, because if you're inserting Camp, to me, the only place he can go is between Lorentz and Yarncroc as a checking line. And then you move up Laughton, and I don't know who his wingers would be necessarily. Like maybe it's McMahon and Domi, or like,
Probably.
that was the line that they originally ran when they got here, except Domi was playing center and Laughton was on the wing, and was kind of saying like at that time, like you should probably put Laughton at center because he cares more defensively, which is very obvious. And it just lets Domi like blow the zone a little bit and like cheat for offense, which he can do. I just like, are you rearranging, half the lineup to make a change when you're 2-0 in the series? Like it feels largely unnecessary.
Yeah, it's tricky because like yeah, that alignment camp with like intellectually I do like it better, but at the end of the day, like there's also, there's a bit of an energy component to it, right? Like this whole series, the Leafs have been projecting quiet confidence. And so I think that, again, you kind of keep the vibe up and you keep that going by being like, this is our team, we're winning. You guys can't beat us right now. And we'll see what happens with tweaks. I do believe if this goes deeper, if Ottawa wins a couple of games and Robertson doesn't do anything, then that is definitely, worth considering what can be done with that spot. But again, like that no panic aspect that Berube brings, like I think part of the way you convey that is by saying like, yeah, this team is not, this group is not maybe perfect, and there's some guys who need to play better, but like this is the group and it's good enough, and we're gonna beat Ottawa with this team.
I also think it's kind of a nice it's kind of a nice back pocket thing to have, to sit there and say like we have like two other like real NHLers that are just chomping at the bit to play in playoff games. Like I'm sure it's killing those guys sitting. Like that sucks. Like they're both pros. Like they're both experienced pros. Like Pacioretty came here to win. He had other offers. He picked Toronto. Like he's here to win. Like, and I'm sure he wants to participate in that. And so it's kind of a nice thing to just kind of, I would just keep them in the back pocket as long as possible, because eventually like those guys are going to come in. Guys are going to get hurt. Guys are going to play like crap. The team's going to lose, any number of reasons. And the hope is like these guys come in absolutely loaded for bear when eventually they do. And so, if game 3 doesn't go the way that the Leafs hope it does, and you lose the game, or, guys continue to struggle, or Robertson keeps high sticking guys in the offensive zone in the corner of the ice when the puck's no longer there, or like any of those things play out, it's like, all right, like Pacioretty or Camp, like you're in, like, let's like come in, like give us a spark. Right. And then like eventually you're going to go back to Nick Robertson. He's probably going to score the first game back. And it's like, these are good things to have, like real actual options. Like, whereas on defense, like to me, like they don't have options. Like you're not like, there's no planet, and barring injury, Myers is not playing.
No, like it doesn't make sense at this point. Like,
Yeah.
and I say that as someone who kind of argued the difference between him and Benoit wasn't that much, and they should consider him and Ekman Larson. I have
Hey, I
argued
wanted
that
to
in
see
the past,
Myers.
but Benoit
Yeah.
has elevated a little bit, and he's justified his spot, and that's just the way it is.
Before, I'm sure we're gonna wrap up soon, and I kind of referenced it, but I feel like the absolute need in like my stomach to talk about this. Drake Batherson on the overtime winner, awful. Like just that was so unbelievably bad. I could not like if a Toronto Maple Leaf had that sequence, he would be getting absolutely lit up. Like the whole thing. Skates down the ice. He has Nick Robertson on him, and Batherson has a step on Robertson. And Ekman Larsson's taking the guy cutting in the middle, and Benoit's kind of lingering on the backside, covering his guy. Like he could have easily just drove the net, doesn't drive the net. Then tries a backhand cross ice pass. Terrible. Then the weakest back check and flies by all in overtime of the Stanley Cup playoffs, down 1-0. And honestly, like Ottawa's been so bad for so long. It's like you've seen these players and you know that they've been around. Like I didn't realize this. Like Drake Batherson's birthday is actually in a couple days. How old do you think he's turning?
Oh no. 27.
He is turning 27.
Damn,
What are
there you
you,
go.
you 20? Are you 22? I can't like the entire sequence. I've watched it on the loop and like I love the goal and the celebration, the crowd, and like all these things. But not taking the step on Robertson, a backhand cross ice pass, like I cannot get over that he did it on his backhand. And then just the softest back check, maybe in the history of NHL playoffs. And I don't say that with hyperbole. Like the level of drive by on Max Domi in that situation was like unbelievable. Like I literally don't know how a teammate could look him in the eye after that level of back check. Like that wouldn't be accepted in like a men's league game in like the middle of December. And that guy's doing it in the Stanley Cup playoffs against a heated rival down 1-0. Like he should have lined up Domi there. That should have been free money, let alone he was the guy that made the turnover in the first place. You know, it's like they say, like, no one back checks harder than the guy who turned it over or made the mistake. He was the
Not this
worst of
time.
all of them. Like, that was, I am at like, we talk about Leaf guys and we focus on them like all the time. And like, you know, if a guy makes a bad play or like doesn't do anything or guy's not moving his feet or whatever the case is, I just, that's got to be one of the worst overtime sequences I've ever seen from a player. Like I honestly can't think of anything competitive to what Drake Batherson did in overtime of game 2.
Well, if any of our listeners know Ottawa Senators fans in their lives, feel free to send them that little section of the podcast.
They should also be mad at Drake Batherson. I would be furious at Jake
I'm
Batherson
sure.
if I was
I'm
a
sure
Senators
they
fan.
are. I am
Like,
sure they are.
they probably haven't watched the goal as many times as I have, but like if they give it a view and they're honest with themselves, and if Drake's honest with himself, oh my goodness, that was I, I just I'm still in disbelief of just how bad that was.
Well, that is, we'll call it an unorthodox note to end the podcast on today. We really appreciate everybody who listens in. We appreciate it even more if you leave ratings and reviews, things that help us grow the show and keep it healthy. We'll be back with you again soon. I don't know exactly when because we're not that organized, but possibly after a sweep to wrap it up, possibly before game 5, something in that kind of realm. So we will be with you then.